She stepped into Langston and Elm Financial in a simple white wedding dress, nothing flashy, nothing beaded or extravagant. Just clean lines, soft fabric, and quiet grace. Her heels made the faintest sound against the marble floor as she approached the front desk. Her eyes were calm, her posture poised, like someone accustomed to carrying more than others could see. "I'd like to open a new account," she said softly, offering her ID with both hands. The teller barely looked up. Her glance snagged first on the dress, then the lack of brand labels, and finally on the subtle tone of formality in the woman's voice. The clerk, middle-aged with angular features and a tight bun, arched a brow. Beside her, a younger employee chuckled behind a perfectly manicured hand. "We don't open accounts below premier tier in person," the teller replied curtly. "Try an ATM, sweetheart. This place isn't for everyone." Laughter bloomed, not loud, just enough to sting. The woman stood still, letting the wave of humiliation break against her like foam against rock. Then she spoke again, her voice unchanged. "If you won't assist me, I'll call my husband." The smirks widened. Another laugh. No one believed her. But 30 minutes later, the doors to Langston and Elm opened and the temperature shifted. The lobby was a gallery of wealth. Marble flooring so polished it mirrored the ornate crystal chandelier above. Golden-framed abstract paintings hanging in perfect symmetry. The faint scent of espresso, waxed oak, and quiet power lingering in the air. It was the sort of place designed to make you feel smaller unless you belonged. At the edge of the lobby stood a woman in a pale lilac blouse and a cream skirt. A silk scarf, neatly tied, framed her face. Her shoes were simple flats beige, worn, unremarkable. She held a canvas tote close to her side like a lifeline. No designer names, no loud colors. She walked softly, but with a kind of stillness that made people glance twice. She approached the reception desk. Behind it sat 2 employees. The first, Margot, had a rigid posture, a glimmering French twist, and crimson lipstick sharp enough to draw blood. Next to her was Jared, a junior associate with a blazer a size too tight and ambition spilling out his eyes. "Good morning," said the woman. "I'd like to open a new account." Margot blinked. Then again, her lips twitched. "This floor is for private banking clients," she said, with a smile full of boundaries. "I know. I read the sign outside. It said, 'New clients welcome.'" Margot's fingers tapped the marble counter. "Yes, but that's more for people with investment portfolios, not—" Her eyes swept over the woman. "Checking accounts." Jared didn't hide his grin. "You might be more comfortable at a local branch. Easier paperwork. Plus, they've got free lollipops." Another employee in heels chuckled nearby without looking up from her phone. The woman, whose name was Sienna, smiled gently. "I still want to start the process. I've brought my documents." She opened her tote and pulled out a navy folder. "Crisp edges. No corners." She placed it with both hands on the counter, as if presenting something sacred. Margot didn't touch it. "Ma'am," she said, her voice low and silken, "our clients typically open accounts with 6-figure deposits. That's the level of service we provide." "I'm aware," Sienna said. "I've researched your bank's services extensively." "But you don't fit the profile," Jared added, chuckling under his breath. Sienna's fingers tightened around her tote. Her pulse beat like a war drum beneath her calm exterior. "You haven't asked a single question about my finances," she said. Margot folded her hands. "We're trained to assess clients. First impressions matter." Sienna glanced at her shoes flats with a small scuff on the left toe and then back at Margot. "You're deciding based on my shoes." On the whole presentation, Margot said coolly, "I can have my husband speak to your branch manager if necessary," Sienna offered. Jared snorted. "Of course you can." A voice from across the room muttered, "Bet she's got someone waiting outside in a Civic." Sienna took out her phone. Her hand trembled not from fear, but from restraint. She didn't want to make this call. She shouldn't have to. But she understood now she'd have to force their hand. The line rang once. "I love," said the voice on the other end. Deep, steady, unshakably calm. "I came to open an account," she whispered. "They laughed at me." There was silence. The still, terrifying kind. "I'll be there," he said. She ended the call and sat down in the waiting area. Back straight, scarf catching the chandelier's light. Eyes fixed ahead. Silent. Unyielding. Behind the counter, someone whispered, "She's bluffing." Probably called her brother. "She'll slink out in 10. But Sienna didn't move. The room continued around her. Phones rang, printers hummed, and staff clicked through screens, but they kept glancing back. She hadn't left. She wasn't crying. She just sat still, dignified, wrong in all the ways that made them uncomfortable. Margot checked the clock and smiled. "Guess the husband got held up," Jared mumbled, sipping espresso with the swagger of someone certain of his place. Then Sienna's phone buzzed. One word. "Outside." She stood. Margot noticed and said, "If you plan to return, I suggest making an online appointment." "I'm not leaving," Sienna replied. "You've waited nearly 30 minutes. And then the glass doors opened. Everything stopped. Sunlight poured into the lobby like judgment. A man stepped through the doors wearing a charcoal gray suit tailored to perfection. Notia, top button undone. The sort of undone that screamed power without a sound. He didn't look left or right. He just walked. Steady, sharp, purposeful. The security guard stumbled out of his way. The assistant manager froze. Jared blinked, mouth slightly open. Margot turned pale. "White is that?" "Yes," someone whispered. "That's Camden Rowe, founder and CEO of the Rowe Holdings Group. A man whose name sat on buildings and global headlines. The kind of name you didn't even dream of unless you had access to private elevators." He crossed the marble lobby and stopped beside Sienna. His arms slipped gently around her waist. He looked down at her. "Are you okay?" "They refused to help me," she said. "Because of how I look." He turned to face the staff. Margot straightened so fast, it looked painful. "Mr. Rowe, we had no idea." "You didn't ask," Camden said, voice like cut stone. "You assumed." Silence. The kind that settled into the bones. "You work for my company," he continued. "Langston and Elm is part of my portfolio. This building, your salaries, your chairs, your espresso machine. All of it exists because of me." Margot looked like she might faint. Jared's smile had vanished entirely. "She came here," Camden said, "with every right to be treated like a human being. She waited. She was polite. She came prepared. And instead of helping her, you laughed." "I didn't," Jared stammered. "I've already heard the recordings," Camden said coldly. "Security sent me the audio the moment she called." Sienna blinked in surprise. She hadn't known. No one humiliates my wife. That was the moment the air changed. Sienna, the woman they dismissed, overlooked, belittled, was no longer a quiet girl in flats and a scarf. She was his wife, and not in the possessive sense. In the way that said, "This woman stands beside me, and you should be so lucky to be in her presence." Effective immediately, Camden said, "You're both suspended. HR will reach out within the hour." Margot gasped. "Please, Mr. Rowe, this has to be a misunderstanding." "No, it's exactly what it looked like." The branch manager arrived then, breathless and pale. "Mr. Rowe, had I known your wife was..." Camden didn't even glance at him. Instead, he turned to Sienna. "Do you still want to open an account here?" She looked at the counter. Then the people behind it, small, ashamed, stripped of their arrogance. She nodded. "Yes, but with a different banker." Camden smiled only at her, then turned to the manager. "Send your best associate. Now." Moments later, a woman in a navy suit with steady hands and kind eyes escorted Sienna to a private office. Camden lingered in the lobby just a moment longer. "She asked for respect," he said, "and you failed. Let this be your lesson." Then he followed her through the frosted doors. The lobby fell silent. The chandelier seemed to hold its breath. No one moved. In the office, the new associate took Sienna's information with reverent care. Camden stood beside her, not looming, not dominating. Just there, steady, present. The branch director stammered apologies. "We didn't know who she was." "And if you had," Camden asked, "you'd have treated her better?" Sienna added softly. The director shrank. "No, of course not. Asked for a basic account," Sienna said. I waited my turn. I didn't raise my voice or name drop. And I was met with mockery. Why? Because I don't look like what you expect wealth to be. Outside the glass, staff pretended not to listen, but every ear was tuned in. Sienna stood, smoother blouse, walked to the door. I didn't come here to make a statement, she said. But maybe it's time someone did. She stepped back into the lobby. Every eye turned. She walked calmly across the marble, past the same people who had laughed at her. Camden paused. His voice, soft but resonant, followed her footsteps. As of this moment, Rowe Holdings is terminating all business with Langston and Elm privately, corporately, and publicly. The branch director chased after them. We'll fix this straining, reviews, new policy. Camden didn't even turn. You had a chance to do the right thing. She gave it to you. You chose otherwise. Sienna paused. She turned to face the lobby. And this time, her voice was meant for everyone. You don't have to wear a $5,000 suit to deserve kindness. You don't need a recognizable last name to be spoken to with respect. Don't judge people by their shoes. Don't wait until someone makes a call to treat them like a person. And then came silence. Not fearful, but ashamed. A woman near the back lowered her head. A man behind the desk rubbed his temples. And then someone clapped. Soft. Awkward. Then another. And another. Until the lobby that once echoed with laughter now pulsed with the sound of respect. Sienna walked out without looking back. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't demanded. She had simply stood her ground and walked out, owning the room.